Welcome to Reverb Roundtable, a weekly show that brings the brightest creative minds and digital producers in sports, entertainment, politics, news, and more to share their stories and strategies that will help you become a better leader and creator. This podcast is hosted by Clark Campbell, the founder and CEO of Reverb Agency, an event media production company where the goal is always to make great events look great online. Let me set the scene. December 2020, the SEC Football Championship, Florida versus Alabama. Two teams that rose to the top in a season that looked nothing like any season had before. And a small video team tasked with telling the story in real time. On today's episode, Clark is joined by Jonathan Bouvier, Reverb's lead videographer, to discuss the strategy, planning, and pivots involved in creating a video documenting the story of the SEC Football Championship. Now, on to this week's episode. Here's your host, Clark Campbell.
John, it feels like it's been 6 months since we were at the SEC Football Championship in Alabama. I'm really trying to think back to all this, but you were there with me in the thick of it. You were an absolute rock star. We were there till 2 a.m. in the morning, and I can't wait to tell everybody that's listening a little more behind the scenes of what that looked like. We are about to launch, jump headfirst into SEC basketball and softball and gymnastics and baseball over the next couple of months. And so I'm trying to get ready for all this SEC stuff. It was a hard December. That SEC championship was really hard. How are you feeling looking back on it a couple months later?
Yeah, I mean, I look back on that, and it was such a blast. It's such a special time. I'm a big football fan, big Florida Gator fan, and so getting to be there on the field editing, it's like I'll never forget that. And just heading into this season that we're about to head into of all these SEC basketball tournaments, then we've got gymnastic tournaments, we've got other tournaments coming along the way. It definitely has me thinking back on this crazy thing that we pulled off with such an incredible team. It's special. Something special that we did. It
was special for Alabama fans. I don't know how special it was for Florida. They did give it. They did give it their best shot. But let's go back a few months before the SEC Football Championship happened, and some of the conversations you and I were having with Dr. Jeff Sawyer, a friend of ours. He's a sports fanatic, and we were like, "Hey, Jeff, we need some advice on how to do this SEC thing," because what we found out was, obviously with COVID, we didn't even know if we were going to get invited to cover the game. We were a little nervous about that. And then when we heard that the team was going to have to be much smaller, we were looking back to what we did the year before. And I'll be honest with you, the year before was stress, Mount Everest when it came to stress. Will edited the video in real time. Actually, the videos. A year ago, in 2019, we did a pre-event video. We had, I think, who was it that did the voiceover? One of the ESPN talent, Laura Rutledge. She did the voiceover, and we planned it out, and then we got to the event. We did some day before fan content. I think we probably made maybe 7 to 10 videos in 2019, and we had a team of 4 or 5 people, and so we had a healthy crew there. We were able to do some more. And then we found out that we were only going to be able to have 3 or 4 people. I think we had to advocate for a 4th person. It was me, you, Michael J, and Kyle Delk. So there were 4 of us. That's what we were able to do. And it was stressful thinking about, we produced 7 to 10 videos last year. What are we going to do this year? There's no way we can produce that many videos with this small of a team. And so we got around a table at Cleveland Coffee Market here in Cleveland, Tennessee. And John, can you remember that first meeting? Kind of put you on the spot. What do you remember discussing in that first meeting?
Yeah, absolutely. So really, we just wanted to draw up a story, something that was going to be so good. And we knew that we were only going to be creating one piece of content. That was a huge piece of this because, like you said, in 2019, geez, I don't know how many videos we put out. I want to say
a bunch.
I want more than 10.
It might have been more than 10. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. You're right.
And Will was a rock star back then. He's still a rock star, but at that
wow.
event, he was a rock star. And so, when you asked me to edit for the SEC 2020, I definitely wanted to bring something special to the table, and then you bring that news of, well, SEC brought the news of we're going to do one deliverable. So like you said, we met with Jeff, and
at that time, we didn't know which teams were going to be in it, right? We were kind of looking at narratives and figuring out, well, is it going to be Florida? And we knew probably Alabama, but would it be Georgia? Would it be Tennessee? No, wasn't going to be Tennessee. We didn't know what team it would be either. Oh, wow. Okay.
I was hopeful it was going to be Florida. Alabama is always, you can always kind of assume that they're going to make it to that game. But yeah, we knew the part of the story that we had to tell, and that was what COVID. A crazy year for football. Like, what a crazy year for sports. They did it in general. And and throughout this time where like no one even knew if there's going to be a season at one point. All of a sudden these teams come together, and not only do they have a season, but they have to play a conference only season. And so that right there, that was kind of our spark. That's our inciting incident that people would say in like the script writing world, that this is the main tension that these teams are going to have to deal with.
And that was exciting for us. Can I say something really fast?
Yeah, absolutely.
That was really exciting for us because normally we don't get to write the story with such technique when you go to an event. A lot of times you're following the story, even though you might have a general framework. We had the opportunity because of COVID to really write a clear story. And I will say, I didn't underestimate you, but I was not expecting the incredible story that you wrote. So what John did, and I'm going to let him tell the story in just a second. John sat down and he basically crafted a narrative that set up the game. And so we created this piece that basically we wrote it and edited it so that when the game started, we could post it. And then we posted the next half of the video with game day footage. So John, take us back into how you wrote the narrative, the first half of the video that we ended up posting the day of the championship.
Yeah. So, you know, the narrative kind of unfolds itself if you really pay attention to these two teams and you pay attention to the SEC football season. And you watch Florida and Alabama both kind of emerge as these dominant teams in their conferences in the East and the West divisions of the SEC. And so it was really just kind of like digging into that, following that, seeing what people are going to connect with, seeing what not just fans of those teams are going to love, but just fans of football are going to just latch onto. Sure. And the exciting part about this story was because of that Corona, because of that tension. Corona is something that has affected all of us. And so people are already kind of connected to the fact that, all right, like the world is pretty crazy, and you know, the world's pretty crazy. I had to figure it out for myself. I had to figure out how to work from home. So now I'm latched onto the story that the world's pretty crazy for them because of Corona. This is what they had to figure out. This is what they had to achieve. This is what they had to overcome and accomplish to get to this point. And so it was really leaning into that tension. And you know, the funny thing is I wrote that first initial story, and I think they had like 2 games left. We knew it was going to be Florida and Alabama. They were locked into the SEC championship, but I think they had 2 games left before they got there. And one crazy thing that was thrown in the mix was Florida lost to LSU. And so
which eliminated the national championship.
And that was kind of in that first draft of the story. It was the winner goes to the college football playoff. That's what they're playing for. That's like the big tension. And all of a sudden, you know, even if Florida wins, they're probably not going to make the playoff anymore. And so we had to, even before the event even started, we had to make a massive change, a massive pivot in the story, and kind of like rearrange what each team is playing for. Yeah,
because Alabama was playing for one thing, Florida was playing for basically that game only, and that was a huge element, and that we had to change on the fly. So we planned, right? We had a game plan, no pun intended, and then we had to adjust it because the information changed and the narrative changed. But you still had a really, really, really powerful story. And we'll have a link in the show notes where you can go watch the entire piece. It will be helpful so that you can understand some of these elements. But one of the harder things we had to do was we had to get all of this footage to match the story. John, I don't know if that was the hardest thing you had to do, but I would guess that was one of the heavier lifts for you. Tell us about what we had to request and who we had to request it from, because that was not easy either. And we love the video teams from both Florida and Alabama, but we had to make some pretty specific requests. What did you do?
Yeah. So essentially we came up with that narrative. We scripted it out. I say scripted, obviously we're not writing lines or anything, but we're writing this story. And basically I asked the SEC for and the SEC would go and ask the teams for this list that I made. And it was basically any footage that I could think of that might fit that narrative. And and everything from, the team's highlights to like specific plays that I would ask for, to
you were very specific. I'm sure it was helpful to their video teams, but you were very specific in what you asked.
I felt bad, but I needed the footage.
Hey, one show note, let's put the list he requested in the show notes. I want people to actually see what John asked for so that they can go, oh my gosh, I am so glad I didn't work for Florida or Alabama to go through a whole season of footage.
I think you might have been a little embarrassed by me.
Not much embarrassed. Just like, oh, sorry, Sammy, John, he wants something specific. But it was such a great list, though. It helped, honestly, John, if you hadn't been specific. I don't know if the video would have turned out the way it did. The specific quotes you got from Dan Mullen and Nick Saban. Can't even say his name without just having just a horrible cough because I just can't say his name. The words that we got from them, and we had to do some adjustment on the fly, but it was super powerful. So keep telling us the story of you had to compile the footage. You had to get the footage from the. Did you get everything that you asked for?
Oh no, I did not get everything that I asked for. That list was way too long to get everything that I asked for. I asked for more than enough and I got just enough, I think. And I spent, so many hours, probably days watching through. I would just YouTube like sports broadcasters talking about the SEC's conference schedule, sports broadcasters talking about coronavirus and the impact on sports, Dan Mullen quotes. I had to sneak in. So Nick Saban, for all you football fans out there, you might know that Nick Saban is not the most emotive coach. And I had some great quotes from Dan Mullen, the Florida coach. And I really needed some quotes for Nick Saban. And so I ended up digging all the way back. I think I pulled a speech from him in like 2016. Because that was like the best thing I could find, and just sneaking it in there to have him. But yeah, it was a crazy list. There was a lot of specific things that we needed, but it was a very specific story. And our goal with that whole the part one, I call it, of that video that we released right before the game was if there's someone who might not even be a football fan. They're probably not planning on watching the college football playoff, but they're scrolling through Twitter and the SEC video pops up. Part one. This video tells the story of two teams who have gone through so many hard things, who have overcome so much this season, a crazy all conference schedule, Corona, and
really hard things like losing to LSU, but keep going.
Okay. But these two teams, and they're going to get invested in these teams. And even though they might not be a football fan, they're all of a sudden involved in this story and they're sucked in and, okay, I'm going to turn on the SEC championship game. I'll watch. Yep. Because I want to see how this plays out. We talk about opening a story loop. Basically, the part one of that video was it was all exposition. It was all about opening this massive story loop and inviting anyone and everyone in to say, hey, come watch this. Come watch and see how this plays out, because you don't want to miss it.
That was one of the harder things, was as we get closer to the game, was did we get the right story? And that's the question as you get closer. And I remember some of the SEC team, like leadership team, making some adjustments to the story. And it's like, oh gosh, I hope they don't pull one piece that makes the whole thing crumble. There was one moment when there was a quote, and I don't remember it exactly, but it was a quote that we needed to pull, and it was like we started shaking. We're like, oh no, is the whole thing gonna fall apart? Because that piece of the story was so important. I believe it was a quote from Nick Saban or something. So we get there. Did you finish editing the video on site, or had you finished the part one. I think you finished editing part one. I can't remember. Tell me.
I had a pretty good cut of part one done by the time we got there. But like you said, we were talking with the SEC team a lot, and we wanted to make some last minute changes. The LSU loss did affect that last cut. And so we were making changes to that video, even day of the championship. I think it actually exported probably like an hour before we sent it out, which that posted, as the teams are warming up on the field. So it even though we had a lot of prep time on the front end, it still kind of came down to last minute on finishing that, because we wanted, like anything, you want to get it as close to real time as possible so that it's relevant and it's right and it's true to what's going on.
And while he's shooting all this footage, by the way, I want to be clear, where we got to edit this year or last year was, I don't know if I will ever in my entire life have a better seat and better look at a college football championship game. But we were in a field suite in the end zone, the Florida end zone, I believe. And it was absolutely incredible. Like, John is sitting there editing, and he's 15 feet from the goalpost watching the game. Like, it was normally we get stuck somewhere in a closet or somewhere where it's a long ways from the action. But John, I can't believe he was able to edit in the way he did. But we got there on site for the event, for the game day, and we were capturing footage around the stadium and the setup and the painting of lines and the teams coming in and seeing the other seeing their locker rooms and trying to get acquainted before they went back to their hotel. So that was a fascinating part of it. We weren't just editing; we were also having to capture footage in real time, and that was, I think, one of the coolest parts about this entire project. Was we did this part one, part two thing where we said, hey, let's have this energy of this post, or this video, this energy of this video that sets the tension. What do you call it? The inciting
incident.
It sets the tension. And then basically John had it already edited where, as the music started to get soft and subtle and mysterious, part two came in so strong with the kickoff. And tell us why the kickoff was the moment, and how did you storyboard that, John?
Yeah, so kind of the idea with part one is I'm going to build this tension up until this moment. And once we hit this moment, it's go time. And that moment I felt was going to be kickoff. So we have part one, and it kind of gets us to the stadium. And then there's this real somber, if you watch the video, you'll hear this real somber. We've got drone shots. It's real eerie. It's in the stadium. Like, you can just you're on the edge of your seat. You hear the coin flip, which I'm just going to throw it out there. Who got that coin flip shot, Clark?
I know who got it. Yeah. That was that Will?
No, that was you. You got.
Oh yeah. Oh, the shot. I thought you meant the sound effect.
No.
I did. Yes. I was a shooter. I got promoted too, because now at the basketball tournaments, I'm going to actually be cam 1 or cam 2, like cam A or cam B. But at the football championship, I was just like this roaming camera guy.
Some of the best shots in that video, Clark Campbell shot.
I don't know,
but that's
I hope nobody's listening to that shot, because everybody did an incredible. Listen,
everyone did.
Michael Jett and Kyle Delk, they got some of the most dope, high quality, slow motion footage you could ever imagine. So credit where credit is due with giving them that.
It was an incredible team all around.
Yep.
Anyway, going back to that kickoff, we wanted this moment where, okay, this is going to hit, and now we're going. Like, you know what it's taken to get here. Now let's just go. We're here. Then it automatically goes into, the music kicks up, and it's essentially now it's a highlight reel of the game. And not just the plays that are happening, but, we wanted to capture the environment as well. And I know that's something, Clark, that you really kind of instilled in me, and it just a desire to not just show what any other, Twitter page might show, but to capture what fans are missing out on by not being in the stadium.
Well, that's exactly what Sammy, our client at the SEC, told us. She was like, "Look, we don't want this just to be what we see everybody else sees on TV. We want this to be an access to what players are seeing and feeling and experiencing on the sideline, and what fans that are close to the players. And it's COVID, so there's a bunch of fans are very spread out. So we wanted to give everyone access to a view that you don't see on TV. And honestly, I'm so glad we had that extra camera, because had we not had that extra, I don't know, what was I using?
You're using a Canon R6.
Yeah, a Canon R6. I don't even know. Is that what I'm using for basketball? I hope
it is.
If I hadn't had that camera, we wouldn't have had that additional footage that we needed. That was kind of like the glue. Like when I would run up to the top of the stadium and get the vantage point of like a Alabama or Florida fan cheering, or walking up to the mascots who were with the cheerleaders who couldn't be on the sidelines. The cheerleaders had to be up in the stands, and I got to get footage with the mascots and cheerleaders. Like, because our other videographers were on the field getting the actual footage of the players. But if that's all we had, it wouldn't have come together. So it was kind of one of those real-time adjustment moments where you're like, me and John were like, uh-oh, give me a camera. I got to go get some footage to complement the game time footage that you have going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And that stuff, we talk about building tension. And yeah, again, with part one, we wanted to build the tension throughout the entire thing. But then you get into the game and you forget about, okay, there's also a lot of tension within the game too. You know, it can't just be one big highlight reel. It can't just be touchdown after touchdown after interception after touchdown.
Yeah.
I think some of the most important moments in the part two of that video are when, you know, Najee Harris, Alabama's running back, runs into the end zone, and then you see the fans get up, get in front of the camera, and they're going wild. It's not always just about what's happening on the field, but it's about what's happening in the stadium. I think, that's right. Again, one of the most important moments building tension is we have kind of this halftime moment in the video of part two. And you see Dan Mullen walking down. You see him walking out of the stadium. You see him take his visor off. He looks so stressed. And that's the kind of stuff that just, it draws you in. It says like, oh, there's a story here. It's not just a football game happening. Like there's characters, there's people, and there are real emotions happening on this field.
I think one thing, just to put John on the spot and to show you how great how flexible and how coachable he is, one of the things that I was pushing back on as we were editing the game in real time that evening as the game was wrapping was that there were so many high impact moments in the timeline of the video that I was like, hey, we got to simplify this so that the human brain can actually process everything that's happening, because it's like play, hit, play, hit. And your brain doesn't have time to actually slow down and go, what was that moment? I can't even remember that moment because there's already 3 moments that have passed me in the video. And I was like, we got to make this somehow. I know all these plays are super important. I know they're valuable to the greater narrative, but since we only have a minute to kind of pull this off, we've got to somehow cut out some of these plays that are just so overwhelming in the timeline with the music and go to some maybe fan reaction that kind of gave the human brain a chance to take a breath. Like you just needed to do after I said all those words in like one sentence, like a run-on sentence.
No, but you're absolutely right. And honestly, you know, hindsight's always 20/20. Even looking back at the finished product, I wish that we had leaned into that even more. Like I still feel a little disoriented by some of the cuts. And if I were to go back and do it again, I would focus more on, okay, what are the moments I can take in? What are the moments I can take a breath so that I can be ready for the next moment?
That's a good question. So those of you who are listening, when you're creating videos, especially video content in real time for high impact events, whether it's sports, music, entertainment, politics, whatever it is, and there's just a lot happening, especially sports and music, I would say, what can you take in when you're watching that video? You have to remember that the viewers they don't have the same adrenaline that you have when you're editing the video or you're shooting the video. So you have to think, the person that's watching this on their couch or in the car in the passenger seat, can they take in this content under less adrenaline than what you are doing editing? And so it's a huge thing video editors and shooters and producers need to remember when it comes to real time. What can a viewer take in so that they can take action on that content? That was tweetable right there. I just made it up though. So.
I'm going to tweet it and I'm going to take credit for it. No, that's so true.
That was your line.
That's so true. I'm literally on the field editing this. My blood is rushing. My adrenaline is so high. But the people that are watching this video,
crazy.
The people that are watching this video are sitting on their couch or laying in bed,
eating popcorn. Throwing back a beverage, adult beverage.
They have to be able to take it in, and I think that's such a great point that you make.
So we didn't finish. The game ended. It was not awkward, but we knew going into this, we're used to delivering like a pregame video, a halftime video, all kinds of stuff. Like we would have already normally delivered all of these things to the client, but we're sitting there and it's like, the game's over. It's midnight. They're wiping the paint off the field, and the things are getting taken. The banners are down, and it's all. And we're like, oh man. And we're sitting there going, how are we going to deliver this? It's already midnight Eastern. Like, no one's going to watch this video at 1 a.m. But we were like, you know what? We got to do this. I think I was flying out the next morning, and it was not something we could just edit later. Like, for the real time nature of it, we needed to get it done. So we edited until, I don't know, man, it was a late night.
I think it was 2:30.
But we hung in there. We stuck it out, and we edited the video, and I think Kyle drove back that night. But you don't always have to deliver things in the exact moment. That's a perfect example. You're not going to post a video at 12:30 in the morning. And honestly, it probably landed a little bit better by posting it Sunday morning. It's like, hey, here's a recap of the late game that we watched last night. So what do you think about that? Do you watch content the next day, and is it as impactful the next day as it is the day of or the evening of the event? That's my question to you, John.
Yeah, I mean, personally, as a content consumer, I think it's absolutely as impactful. I'm a huge Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan. And thank you. I spent probably 45 minutes even yesterday. And this is, at least a week after the Super Bowl, even yesterday, just watching videos and photos of like the boat parade and watching like highlight videos. Like I'm still on that high. I'm still loving what I experienced as a Bucs fan. And I think that there are a lot of people who saw the video the next day, and hopefully, my goal for them is to still be on that high. And if they're starting to droop, this is like a reminder. Hey, remember how great this was? Remember how awesome
that is part of it. Part of what we do with creating video and photo for events that go on social is we want people to feel like they were there. And even if, or for the fans that were there who couldn't watch it on social media during the game, it's also nice for them to be able to consume something the next day and go, oh, I was there. Oh, I was near those cheerleaders. Oh, I was near that shot in the upper deck. Like it is good as well for the fans that were there to see the content the next day. So sometimes we put this unnecessary pressure on ourselves that the content has to go out in real time during the game. And honestly, we talk about it often. You need to try to do that. But sometimes strategically, it's okay if it gets posted the next day. That was another tweetable moment.
And honestly, a big part of that was the game started at 8. It was scheduled to start at 8 o'clock. It didn't start until probably 8:20.
Yeah,
and it was
so late.
High scoring game. It was a long game. I don't think that the actual celebration started until maybe 12:30. And I remember all the shooters coming back and sitting down finally. And I look at my clock, it's like 1 a.m. Like, oh my gosh, how am I still here? There's so many factors that play into these real-time events that you have no control over. And, ultimately it comes down to the executive's decision if they want to post that video at 2:30 in the morning.
Right. So the moral of the story is when you have fewer people, fewer resources, you really got to plan even more. I'm not making a case that you don't plan if you have a larger team. You still need to plan. So many of the podcasts that we've had so far this year have really driven that point home. You need to plan, but you need to plan to be flexible as well. Mm-hmm. You need to come up with a really solid format or framework, that's the word I'm looking for your event video, your event photo, your event social content But you need to have a framework for real time as well. And we did that. We had a pre-event, an amazing plan. John was an absolute legend. I mean, a legend was made during the SEC football championship, and that was John Bouvier. He did absolutely incredible. But we also had to turn on our real time storytelling hat, our journalistic hat at the event as well. We had to work on our feet, super flexible, and the client was incredibly happy. We got the video posted. I don't think we had to do one edit. I don't know. Did we do an edit on Sunday? I can't remember.
I don't think so. I'm pretty sure they were happy with it.
Yeah. And so we cut it for Instagram TV, IGTV. We also did some shorter form for Twitter and Instagram, maybe when we posted it the night before. So incredible, John. Absolutely phenomenal. Great work. So proud to have you on our team. We get to work together to make clients like the SEC and so many others look great online, because their great events should look great online. So thanks, man. Keep up the great work. And let's go make some more amazing content the next couple of weeks at the SEC basketball, women's basketball, men's basketball. We'll be in Greenville, South Carolina, and then Nashville, Tennessee, and then some more stuff after that, we hope.
Oh, man. I'm so excited. We've got a great team, and we're going to make some great content. It's going to be awesome.
Let's go. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank you so much for joining us this week on Reverb Roundtable. If you'd like to watch the video that Clark and John were referencing, you can find it in our show notes. To grab those notes, just go to rvrb.cc/podcast and subscribe to our email list. Not only will you get easy access to that video, but you'll also get show notes for every single episode and sometimes free resources too. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you next week.